11Alive News at 11 p.m. starts now.
And good evening, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Jonathan Martin.
And I'm Jennifer Bellamy. If you are just joining us tonight, we are tracking Hurricane Helene. Right now, we are just hours from the strongest impacts that we expect to hit us here in Metro Atlanta. Let's take you outside right now for a live look in Tampa, Florida, where Helene is close to making landfall along Florida's Gulf Coast.
11Alive Weather Impact Chief Meteorologist Chris Holcomb and meteorologist Melissa Nord are both tracking the system for you tonight, really second by second.
We really are, and we just got new information in at 11 o'clock. Melissa, looking at this storm, you can see here that landfall is almost there. They're not calling this official landfall yet at 11 o'clock, but this is as close as you can get to landfall without an official landfall.
The power is still kind of flickering on and off. I know the last live shot that we had done, we actually lost power. The winds are starting to pick up. Pause for a little bit. We're feeling okay, and we're still feeling safe. But definitely the wind gusts still starting to pick up here as the dirty side of the storm makes its way here. The dirty side of the storm, Chris, which I know that you guys are familiar with, is the most dangerous side of the storm because of how violent those wind gusts can be. The trees here that are along these power lines have been whipping throughout. Another transformer just blew kind of in the distance, and that's going to be something that's going to be consistent as the night continues on and as we go into the later hours and as the storm finally makes its way here to Valdosta and Lowndes County. Just maybe within the last 15 minutes or so, probably even less, the power has continued to flicker on and off. We're hearing a lot of different pops that are happening in the distance far away from us as these wind gusts continue to get even heavier and the storm passes through the southern part of Georgia. Now, this is what the Valdosta area has been waiting for, essentially, is to see what the hurricane force winds were actually going to feel like, what they were going to look like. And you guys are taking a look at them right now. The wind has just been whipping through this area here. They are getting hammered and pounded by rain as this storm comes through. And like Chris was explaining to you guys a little bit earlier, this is the dirty side of the storm. And so these are the heaviest wind gusts, some of the heaviest wind gusts that we are going to continue to see as the storm makes its way up north to Metro Atlanta.
Now we want to go back out to 11Alive's Joe Ripley.
He is live out on the road from Griffin and Spalding County. So, Joe, what are you seeing at this hour?
Yeah, right now we are all driving along Highway 16 through Griffin, and the rain has certainly picked up while we've been out here over the last hour. So has the wind, too. Melissa was just telling us there is that threat of downed trees and power lines. We do expect that to ramp up as Helene drives through the state of Georgia. As we drive along, let's show you what we're looking at here from our vantage point. We've got photojournalist Anthony Shepard manning the wheel here, and so just keep in mind I'm not driving right now. Thankfully, Anthony is driving, but here's what we're looking at here. You can see the windshield wipers going here. No one really out on the roads, which thankfully that's a great thing right now. Emergency officials all day long have been telling folks to shelter in place, hunker down, because this storm is only going to intensify. There have been instances, several of them, of pooled water, ponding water along the roadways.
It is just after 12:30 in the morning. We appreciate you staying up with us tonight. Right now, we are continuing to track Hurricane Helene.
And our Grace King is live along Peachtree Creek, still in Brookhaven tonight. Grace, what are you seeing in this new location?
Right, we're just off Shady Valley Road in Brookhaven where the flooding is starting to happen. We can see Peachtree Creek coming up into this backyard here in Brookhaven. Now, earlier I was told it was a little bit higher. It's gone down a little bit. But if you take a look, you can see where the fence is. Earlier, it was just almost to the top of that fence. That fence is about 6 feet tall, about 10 feet above the creek, to give you an idea of just how high the water has come up.
Okay, Chris, I'm going to get right to it. We're off of actually Rickenbacker Way, so a little bit of clarification because Rickenbacker Drive seems to be okay as we were circling through the neighborhood. This neighborhood is right off of Roswell Road, if you're familiar with the area, across from like Pike's Nursery, really north of Buckhead, North Atlanta. I'm going to get out of the way because Nancy Creek is doing her thing. As you mentioned, the creek is starting to really swell, and we could not drive through this. This was just too much to test our vehicle. You can see the water right there. Now, off to the side, on your right side of the screen is Nancy Creek, and you can see kind of in the distance, there are homes right here along Nancy Creek. I'm not sure how well you can see, and if we zoom in far away to that mailbox at the very end of the shot, it's kind of lit. It's pretty dark out here, but that mailbox is kind of hitting the top of the pole.
We saw how quickly the water was rising, and we have more rain on the way.
And these conditions are only going to get worse. That's what our meteorologists have been telling us. We want to get now to our Grace King. She is live along Peachtree Creek in Brookhaven. What are you seeing there, Grace?
Really a similar situation to what Liza saw. The creek here, it's moving fast, it's rising quickly, and it's worrying homeowners, some of whom told me they haven't ever seen the water this high. I spoke with one couple who moved here 7-8 years ago. They said they've seen the water kind of trickle up into their backyard, maybe about halfway, nothing too crazy. But we were there about half an hour ago, and the water was, you couldn't tell where the creek ended, where their backyard began. They said they have a 6-foot tall fence, and it came up just almost to the top of that fence. And they're worried, of course, that that's going to continue to rise as we see more rain throughout the night. Now, if you take a look behind me, I know it's a bit hard to see, but you can see the water moving rapidly through Peachtree Creek. They told me that's not normal to see it moving that fast. They said it's angry, and that they know that it's kind of sweeping up debris in their yard.
I think this is a great perspective for people to see because, again, the further south you go, you're starting to see a lot of that flooding around metro Atlanta. Here, I just checked in with the fire chief, and he says really besides about 2 crashes, that's the only calls they've had up to this point. So they are getting some nice rest before things pick up here. As far as power outages, I believe it's under 200 at this point, but things will be changing.
We've just gotten a lot of rainfall. If we were dry and we just had a quick moving, thunderstorm with strong winds, hurricane force winds, we'd have those gusts hitting the trees would sway a bit, but then because the ground is dry, those roots are better locked in place. But because we've had so much rain before we get these strong winds, the ground, if you try to stomp around outside, it's mud, it's mush outside. So those roots are not locked in. They're a lot more susceptible to these strong winds, especially because we haven't had a leaf drop yet on the fall foliage. So all of our trees, both pine trees and the leaves that change colors, all of our trees still have leaves on them. So when we hit these trees with these strong winds tonight, that causes a greater risk of them coming up by the root system in the overnight. And that's why we're really concerned about widespread power outages for parts of North Georgia, especially from Atlanta to Athens down to the south.
All right now let's get back to 11Alive Zach Merchant. He's been tracking the power outages across Georgia. Zach, we knew that the numbers would start to climb as the night goes on. How is it looking right now at 1:45?
Well, they're climbing, and take a look at the map. We're going to zoom in a minute here because I know as I'm looking at the monitor, this is a little zoomed out, but as you can see, you saw that live picture of Tybee Island a moment ago. South Georgia, Southeast Georgia, we're going to zoom in here. This is the story of power outages in our state right now. We're looking at a map from Georgia Power of outages across the state. Let's zoom in even a little further to South Georgia here because Hurricane Helene is moving her way up into our state. Lowndes County now almost 32,000 people without power in Lowndes County. Take a tour over to the coastal side of our state here, the southeast. We're in Glynn County now, almost 28,000 people without power. Up here now in the heart of Savannah, we're in Chatham County, 30,000 people without power. You can expect those numbers to rise.
On our way, as we were driving through Buckhead, we actually saw multiple areas with trees down. You had one on Riverside Drive, then you had one on Moscato. That a lot of areas around here are dealing with down trees. But what we did, we stopped closer to Sagamore Drive and North Side, where we're seeing massive flooding along Peachtree Creek. I want you to just take a look behind me as you can see some of what we're seeing here. The water has overrisen the banks of Peachtree Creek, now on the street blocking Sagamore. As we walk over here, you can even see some of the actual manholes starting to bubble up as water starts to come out of here.
We have been covering this storm for hours and hours and hours, and really for days. We've been preparing people to get ready for this system to move in. This is now the timeline of what we have been talking about 4 days and all day today, where things are really starting to ramp up a little bit more. We've already been dealing with plenty of rain. We've been tracking those bands of moderate to heavy rain that have been pushing through the area. This band is about to move in here south and east of the city. That's about to push through Atlanta.
And this specific area is near the Blue Heron Nature Preserve, because we know Nancy Creek stretches across several neighborhoods when we talk about it here in the Atlanta area. I'm going to get out the way and really show you a look at the rushing water right here at the Nancy Creek area, because this is off of Rickenbacker Way and Rickenbacker Road. I actually had a chance to speak with a homeowner who is awake and monitoring the situation. He's probably 500 yards from this, thankfully, but he does already have some flooding in his front yard and sandbags at the door, and he was moving his cars once again, just not feeling confident about the situation. He told me that some of the homeowners that back up to this creek have also moved their vehicles, but he was not sure if they were still home. Right now, some of those homes really have a lot of water in the front. But right now, before we move our camera and give you another look